All right, you know, and it's kind of interesting, Ambassador. When I first heard the name the Khorosan Group, it sounds like a PR firm on K Street or something. But I want to talk about Iranian President Rouhani this week, who spoke at the UN and pretty much said, you know what, I would be happy to work on fighting ISIS if you would give me some nuclear arms consideration. How did you interpret what he said?
Yeah, it was a very interesting speech, very subtly delivered, but with a very clear message. And I thought it was a rich contrast with President Obama's speech, where he barely mentioned Iran, simply saying, take the deal that's on offer. Interesting, because Obama had spent much of his speech talking about how Russia ignored international norms, one of the president's favorite standards. Didn't say anything about Iran ignoring not just international norms, but half a dozen Security Council resolutions saying they had to stop uranium enrichment. And Rouhani's response was very interesting, because he said, you know, I'll help you with ISIS if you'll cut me even more slack in the negotiations over the nuclear weapons program. I mean, it's hard to imagine the administration giving more away to Iran than they have already, but Rouhani was opening the door. I'm very worried the president's going to walk through it.
Well, but wouldn't Iran, I mean, Iran already has an interest in fighting with ISIS, being the Shiites and you know, the ISIS being the Sunnis, the militant Sunnis. So why would we give them concessions at all? They're going to go in there and fight them anyway, are they not?
Well, that's I think what's interesting about Rouhani's logic is he sees that the president is desperate for finding allies who will take ISIS on, so that there's no prospect of American ground troops being involved in the combat. And that means specifically Iran surrogates, the government in Baghdad and the Assad regime in Syria. Now, the president still says he's not going to aid the Assad regime, but he's going all the way he can to aid the Baghdad government. I think that's a mistake, but I think Rouhani is playing him like a violin, both on ISIS and on the nuclear program.
And at the same time that he's looking for concessions, and as you mentioned, we've already given them a great number of concessions, apparently during the 2012 campaign, but Rouhani then goes on to blame the Middle East terrorism on Western nations, saying that our blunders in the region have created the haven for extremists.
Well, I think Rouhani is sounding a familiar line for Iran and other extremist regimes in the region, but it's something I believe President Obama himself believes in. Obama said in the State of the Union message in January that the long-term deployment of American troops helped contribute to extremism, which is the word he prefers to use instead of terrorism. Mm-hmm. And Rouhani is now, in effect, reminding Obama of what he himself believes, as do many in academia and on the left in America. We're the problem. We're the troublemakers. We're the cause of radical Islam. So if we'd simply defer to regional powers, conveniently like Iran, how much better things would be, says Rouhani.
And how close is Iran to developing a nuclear weapon?
Well, they're very close. I think they could, given the amount of enriched uranium they have now, assuming their weaponization is as advanced as we think, I think it would only take a couple of months. But what's important is that Iran isn't rushing to build one nuclear weapon. They're not afraid of us. They're not afraid of a military strike against the program. They're creating a very sophisticated and extensive nuclear infrastructure. And when they finally do produce the first bomb, it will be one of dozens or scores.
Wow. And Netanyahu, of course, Prime Minister from Israel, is going to be speaking at the UN this week. I mean, I imagine that his talk will be just the opposite of President Rouhani's.
Yeah, I think Netanyahu's speech will be one of the 2 or 3 most important of this opening of the General Assembly. He's clearly going to try and refute what Rouhani has said about the nuclear program. He's got to refute what the Palestinians have said about Operation Protective Edge in the Gaza Strip. I think it'll be a performance to look forward to on Monday. Netanyahu's a former Israeli UN ambassador. He feels very comfortable in that context, and he usually gives a good performance. So it'll be an interesting way to start the week.
Great speaker. Oh, Ambassador Bolton, thanks so much for being with us tonight.